ladies and gentlemen. 2020 is the year of the visionary savage. We already have the Pope slapping people and a impeached president blowing up people in cars. But despite our impending doom, welcome to the Bfloshow podcast, the podcast that you are looking for, the podcast that shoots first, the podcast that's no moon, the podcast that will never be as cute as Baby Yoda. This is the Bfloshow podcast with your host, Bflo. All right, well, you may have guessed it, but today's episode, I'm going to be talking about Star Wars. You probably knew that because you clicked on the episode that said Star Wars. Yeah, so Star Wars, those crazy ass Star Wars, those near and far wars, I need them now. Man, wow, Star Wars, Rise of Skywalker, finally got a chance to see it, and basically summed up a whole saga spanning 40 years. Originals came out before I was born, and was a huge fan. When I was about 11 years old, I asked my grandmother to buy me the Star Wars trilogy. It was a special edition VHS box set. I asked for it for Christmas. And this was the Mac Daddy version that featured the completed vision of George Lucas. There were some things that he wasn't happy about with the original cut. And thanks to the evolution in technology that had taken place from the 70s to the 90s, they were able to recut the original movies to include more background aliens and a non-human Jabba the Hutt. That was in his first meeting with Han Solo in episode 4. Basically, they updated the graphics and sound and filled in the gaps with special effects that he thought was missing from the originals at the time. So I was ecstatic to receive this gift on Christmas. I watched the films over and over again. The triumph of the Rebel Squadron defeating the evil Galactic Empire's ultimate weapon, the dreaded Death Star. It never did it cease to give me a sense of bravery and hope when I watched it. The tragedy of Han being captured and frozen in carbonite, Luke getting his hand cut off and learning the most evil man in the galaxy was his father, the conclusion that saw Vader turn on the Emperor to save his son and bring balance back to the Force, and Luke finding out that he has a sister, as well as the ultimate downfall of the Empire with the help of teddy bears called Ewoks. The prequels came out in '99. I saw The Phantom Menace twice in theaters. Attack of the Clones I had mixed feelings about, and Episode 3 saw the birth of Vader. The prequels I didn't like quite as much as the original trilogy, mainly because I knew how the story was going to end. You know, Anakin was going to turn evil. There was no mystery there. They just filled out the story that Obi-Wan told Luke in Episode 4. Then, holy shit, we're going to make the sequels. This was something that George Lucas said that he was not interested in doing originally, which was a surprise, to everyone when that actually broke that the sequels were going to be made. Everybody was so, excited and really just had mixed feelings about everything. But we didn't think it would happen in a million years. But surely enough, in 2015, that episode 7 came out, and here we are in 2020 with a completed saga spanning the 40 plus years. I watched all the movies leading up to Rise of Skywalker before I went to see it. I did see it in chronological order, and yes, I did watch Rogue One to kind of tie together episode 3 and 4. So I did watch them all in succession, and there were a lot of people saying negative things, about the sequel trilogy. A lot of people have mixed feelings. Some of the things, it's not well thought out or not put together well, poorly directed. I want to remind these people that Star Wars, at its very root, was supposed to be just these adventure serials. They weren't supposed to be super complicated, just these action movies. They're supposed to be cowboy movies in space. They were supposed to be fun, lighthearted, and full of action. And they do fulfill that genre. The sequels mirror the original trilogy. This is something that's huge for me. They're like looking into a mirror of the old ones. And upon the second look, really the prequels also mirror the original trilogy. Just think about this. There was a nobody girl on a desert planet that ends up being a somebody after all. So that does sound familiar, right? Anakin was found on a desert planet and ended up being the chosen one, born of the midichlorians. Luke was a farm boy on a desert planet and ended up being the offspring of Anakin Skywalker, who eventually blew up the Death Star, you know. And Kylo Ren, you know, he wanted to be evil, but in the end, he redeemed himself. And that's just like Vader. You know, at the end, Vader turned back on the Empire in Return of the Jedi. And, you know, they both were redemptive, evil characters. And Yoda, he went into isolation on the planet Dagobah after he failed to destroy Palpatine in Episode 3. Likewise, Luke was in isolation after he had his major failure, how he failed Kylo when he was going to kill him. You know, instead of train him, he sensed the dark side in him. So, you know, he was cranky like Yoda, or just basically isolated like Yoda on that one planet. So Rey came and saw him, much like Luke went to see Yoda in Empire Strikes Back. You know, Luke was cranky, unwilling to train Rey, just as Yoda thought Luke was too old, and Force Ghost voice Obi-Wan had to convince him to do so. You know, so now Yoda is a Force Ghost convincing Luke to train Rey. You know, it seems like we would have learned a lesson there from there. But the overlying themes remain the same throughout the saga. The struggle between darkness and light in the universe, you know, outside in the universe and inside of ourselves. The struggle for identity, who we are and who we're going to be and what we're going to stand for, and who we are versus who our family is or our family name. The struggle for balance. And the Force is forever hidden and strong in those destined to make a difference. One thing that really hit me while watching The Rise of Skywalker is the energy transfer between Jedi and Sith. It's always been there, just not explicitly stated. I never really got the fact that Obi-Wan was killed by Vader in Episode 4, only to have his energy transferred to Luke. He heard the voice of Ben internally, not externally. Likewise, Yoda's energy transferred to Luke in Episode 6. The idea of all the Jedi living with the Force is not unheard of. It was always just implied instead of stated. The Emperor trying to zap life energy out of Rey and Kylo was similar to him zapping Luke at the end of Episode 6. It was just never clear that he was trying to preserve his life by grabbing some of Luke's. Speaking of the Emperor, how the hell did he survive the fall down the Death Star shaft? Death was implied here from a certain point of view. Luke survived his fall after finding out who his daddy was by force falling into a ventilation shaft and getting scooped up by the Falcon. So what's to argue here that the Emperor didn't do the same thing with some dark energy? So Luke can survive a fall, and it does show exactly how he was like falling, like he was going to die, you know, but somehow he kind of like pushed himself, or just it was a great angle and the power of gravity worked into that shaft so, you know, he could get back to the Falcon. But my thing is, he used a force power to kind of shove himself to the ventilation shaft there. Which goes along, everybody's criticizing Leia for force spacewalking, whatever that was, and that, you know, whatever that was, but it's kind of similar to what Luke did when he was falling. You know, he manipulated space somehow to, you know, move. So why not? and the Emperor could have survived the same way. So I don't think that this is a plot device that is unheard of, that somebody survives a fall down, a Death Star shaft. Excuse the shaft, uh, the multiple uses of the word shaft. I'll stop saying shaft now. Um, how Luke's lightsaber survived the fall. That's another story, though. That's another story for another time. And don't worry, I predict there will be a spin off movie starring Maz Kanata. Is that her last name? Kanata? And it's probably going to be on Disney Plus. And it'll be all about how she caught the lightsaber in Cloud City, not Cloud City, off the Death Star somehow, and went on to have it in a box for Rey to find later on. Some Rise of Skywalker made me laugh out loud moments. The use of the Jedi mind trick when Rey tricks the stormtroopers into thinking they belong on the ship. They're like, "Hey, we're so glad you're here. Here, welcome, guys." And it was just like, it was just funny how positive they were, welcome them onto the ship there. Boba Frick character made me laugh just looking at him, and looks like another merchandising grab, but to me, he was funny. It's kind of like an uglier Baby Yoda. Um, so, but he's definitely one of my favorite kind of characters that were thrown in there. Speaking of the merchandising thing, it really doesn't bother me that the new things are introduced in order to sell toys. They've been doing it since the OG trilogy. Star Wars is a huge cast of characters with almost endless worlds and endless species. The originality that goes into creating a new type of aliens, and the fact that you can even make them cute and marketable, that's a feat on its own. Another positive I saw in Rise of Skywalker was Wedge freaking Antilles. Let me tell you something. That is one of my favorite characters. He is one of those guys that was a huge part of the original trilogies. He survived all the major battles. He was with them with the Death Star, the Battle of Hoth, the ending battle against the Empire, and he should add a bigger part in the new movies. But the fact that he was there at all in the Falcon for just a split second, it does mean a lot. But again, one of my favorite just kind of characters that not a lot of attention is brought to, but he survived just as much as the original cast, from the original trilogy. Okay, so I get it. I mean, you get it. I love Star Wars. I mean, it's hard for me to find a negative about it. But yeah, even I found some things that are bugging me. One of the things is force healing. So force healing never took place in any of the other episodes, and it happens multiple times in this movie, and it's even used to bring Rey back from the dead. Something would have been very helpful for Anakin to bring back his dead mother after the dying mistreatment of the Sand People, or why not revive Padme after dying from giving birth to Luke and Leia? Is the healing only limited to seconds after the injury? Is it a new development in the mysterious force, or only relevant when the plot so dictates? Another negative is fake deaths. This movie sets a freaking record number of fake deaths in a movie. The Emperor is dead. No, wait, he's alive. Chewie's dead. No, wait, he's alive. Kylo's dead. No, wait, he's alive. Kylo went over the cliff now. He's got to be dead. Nope, nope, nope. There he is. He's alive. Rey is dead. Never mind, she's alive. Kylo is dead. For real this time. Not only fake deaths, but come on, space horses? Space horses. How do they breathe? Why the hell are they not floating away? Why doesn't the ship turn and dump their asses off? And how the fuck are they breathing in space? So overall, guys, I love the movie. I like the new trilogy. more than the prequels. I love the saga, and I'm excited for the future of Star Wars. The Mandalorian is amazing, and it's raising more and more questions regarding the race of Yoda, and the Force is still around and always will be. You know, um, it's really awesome. I love the. Speaking of kind of liking it, I guess I have to defend why I like the new sequels instead of the prequels, or more than the prequels. And that reason is you didn't know what to expect from the sequels. There was that air of mystery behind the sequels that we didn't know who Rey was going to be. You know, we didn't know that she was going to end up being a Palpatine. Forever, I just thought she was some kind of Skywalker uh, clone somehow. You know, the clone theory is always out there, always on the table. But, you know, I thought it could somehow be an offspring of Luke or Leia. Luke seemed, you know, he didn't know her at all, so of course that kind of threw that out the table once he had some dialogue um, in The Last Jedi. But I really liked it more because it did have that, it made me feel kind of like a kid again in the fact that I didn't know what was going to actually go down in the movies when I watched them. You know, the prequels, you're like, okay, you know, Anakin's a kid, you know, which they added a lot of stuff. But Anakin's a kid, and he's going to grow up, and he's going to be Darth Vader. We're going to see that character arc of him just becoming evil. And, you know, they had the kind of a half-ass Clone Wars that they really kind of tried to correct with the animated shows and all that kind of stuff. It was just, you know, the three was just like, okay, let's tie up all these plot points. We know that Yoda has to go into isolation. We know this and yada yada yada. Yoda gave up really easily after one fight with Palpatine, and you know it was just predictable, sort of. You knew where it was going with the prequels. With the sequels, you did not. So loved it, you know, for that reason, just because they put themselves out there. And they really mirrored the original trilogies brilliantly, in my opinion. If you guys have any debate about this, I know some people are saying that it's just terrible. It was a bad plot device. They kind of half-assed everything. Feel free to email me, Bfloshowpodcast at gmail.com. Join in Facebook discussion on the group page. And, you know, I would love to talk some Star Wars with anyone who wants to. But just in conclusion, the battle of light and dark, good and evil, it's going to continue. The names will change, but the story will stay the same. Balance in the Force is something that's always sought after. And hey, thanks for listening to the Bfloshow podcast. Like and subscribe, and may the Force be with you all, always.